Welcome to Thinner Peace and Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. Today is episode number 232. Stay tuned. Hi, all my dear friends. How are you today? I have had a very interesting weekend. I'm actually doing this podcast a little late. And to be really honest with you, which is what I like to do, I was going to run a repeat podcast this week because I was doing a Pema Chodron retreat online, and I wasn't sure that I was going to have enough time to be able to get a brand new podcast out to you. But I have to tell you what happened. I just finished the retreat, and I am so inspired to want to share something with you. Because one of the main things that Pema shares and that Buddhist philosophy shares is that in the end, as a human being, we want to be of benefit to other human beings. And that is one of the things that I took away from this online retreat, is that I was so inspired to be able to help my own mind better and to be able to hold my own self in a better light. And I learned a lot about that this weekend. And I couldn't stop myself from wanting to share some of these with you today while I am as inspired as I am. And to know that Pema's teachings go back thousands and thousands of years, this Buddhist philosophy, these Buddhist teachings. And one of the things that she said today is that she feels like she's the interpreter for Westerners on Buddhist philosophy and on the teachings that she learned. And now I kind of feel like I'm the interpreter of Pema, who's the interpreter of Buddhist philosophy. I'm now the interpreter to my people to help them understand their minds better, because everything I teach is all about learning how to manage your mind, learning how to allow your own feelings to come through, and to stop using food as a way of not allowing those urges to come through. And it's everything that she teaches. You know that, especially in my last couple of podcasts, I've been talking more and more about Pema and the Buddhist philosophy. And I know a year ago, I got so inspired again by Pema and urges and Shempa. And she just keeps popping up into my life because I resonate so much with what she teaches, because it's exactly what I'm wanting to learn in my life, and it's what I want to teach you. I feel like that's what I'm here for. At first, when I first started doing coaching and I first started learning the work about coaching in the mind, I thought really it was all about helping you and my clients and my listeners understand why they eat when they're not hungry, because it is a mind management issue. I learned that, and it helped me so much. But as I grow older, I realize that what my purpose is even bigger than that. And of course, what I've learned from my own clients, and even you as listeners, when I'm learning from you, is that the work that I'm teaching is inspiring you way beyond the eating thing. I know that it's changing your life, because I know that it's changing the way that you see yourself. And the way that we see ourselves and our perception of ourselves is how we put ourselves out into the world, how we treat ourselves, and then how we put ourselves out into the world. So one of the main things that Pema taught this weekend that I want to try and impart to you today is she talks about the whole idea of being able to hold difficult feelings, to be able to make space for difficult feelings inside of you, to not run away, to not try to resist it, to not try to eat it. She didn't say that, but I'm saying it to you. It's all the same thing. It was all about that. And the reason that she wanted to do it was because of all the unrest that's just going on in the world right now. She felt it was more important than ever for these teachings. So her main teaching was how to deal with difficult feelings, how to hold a place in yourself for difficult feelings. And really, guess what the whole premise was how to make friends with yourself. Because here's the thing. When you can hold space for your own difficult emotions without running away from them. It's like being able to sit down with somebody that you love dearly, like your best friend or a friend, sit down with them, look them in the eyes and say, okay, darling, I'm here to listen. Tell me what's bothering you. And then that friend can just talk and say everything that's on her mind and say the things that are difficult and talk about her feelings. And when I do that, I am giving my friend a place, some space to put it. And what Pema says, what she was saying for the last 2.5 days, was that is what we need to do for ourselves. That the first step is making friends with ourselves. And I know I've said it in lots of different ways over the years about talking about that, about loving yourself. But I think that as I listen to her this weekend, it even becomes more clear about before you can do anything for anybody else, you have to be able to be friends with yourself first. And I really think we've got it backwards. I think that we need to make friends outside of ourselves first, that we have to do good things for people outside of ourselves first. May it be our family, may it be the people we work with, may it be whoever it is. And yet, we are not doing that for ourselves first. And here is the thing. The only way that you can do it for others is you must do it for yourself first. And one of the ways that she talks about doing it for yourself first is being able to hold a difficult feeling inside of you, to be able to make space with it, to be able to make friends with it, to be able to allow it to be the way that it is. I can't say how many times she said these last 2.5 days about being with it the way things are, not trying to change them, not trying to get rid of it, not even trying to change yourself, just being with yourself and being with the way things are, being with this virus, being with this unrest, being with what you see as your problems. It's being able to stay with it. And she talked a lot again. She did a whole teaching on Shempa again, which I have talked about endlessly because I resonate with it so much when I talk to all of you about our urges. Because to me, an urge is really just when you get hooked or you get attached and then you go down the rabbit hole and before you know it, you've got 3-4 pieces of cake in your mouth, a bag of potato chips or whatever. It's kind of like you lose it. Once you're attached, once you're hooked, you're in it. And she calls it Shempa, and I've talked a lot about it. So I'm not going to talk a lot about it today other than, oh my gosh, this woman keeps talking about the same things over and over again, and I keep learning in a different way, which is why I'm probably talking about the same things over and over again to you. But I'm hoping that you're getting it in a different way because your mind is open in a different way. And another thing that she talked about that I thought was really interesting is she says there's 3 zones of human capacity or human learning. And the first zone is the comfort zone. The second zone is actually the discomfort zone, or she calls it the learning zone. And then the third zone is the trauma zone. And she says what we as human beings tend to want to hang out in is the comfort zone, where really everything is just the way that we want it. We're just kind of going along. We think we know what's going to happen. We think our plans are all going to come to fruition. And she says that in that comfort zone, that nothing happens. There's no learning. There's no growing. And yet, as a human being, that's where we tend to want to stay. When she talked about the second zone, the learning zone, or the uncomfortable zone, it's when things aren't going the way that we want them to go. For instance, I don't think any of us want to have this virus around right now. I'm pretty sure that there's nobody here that says, I'm just so thrilled with this. And yet it is what's happening, along with all the unrest and things that are going on in the country. And so what it does is it does tend to take our minds out of our comfort zone because we don't like what's going on. But she says that's usually when the biggest change takes place inside of us, inside of the people that we're connected to. And since as people, we're connected to everybody in the world, it's when the most amount of change can happen. And a lot of times when the most amount of good can come. And then she talks about the trauma zone where it's too much and nothing can happen either, which is not the zone I want to talk about right now. But I know that there's people in there where they don't feel like they can do anything. And I totally get that too. But for many of us, we're in this middle zone right now and we're thinking of it as something that we don't want and we wish it would go away, right? But what she said is like, it's really the most beautiful place to be where we can see ourselves more clearly and that we can see our own difficult emotions more clearly if we're willing to hold space for them. Because seriously, when things are uncomfortable, that's when we usually have difficult emotions, right? And it's a beautiful time for us to be able to learn how to hold space for them. Whatever they are, not run away from them, but be able to stay with them. And she calls that basic warmth, being able to show warmth towards ourselves and compassion for ourselves for how we're feeling. We don't try to change it. We basically just say, this is the way it is, and it's okay. I think I've said that a lot in my podcasts over time about, you know what, wherever we are, it's okay, sweetheart. To be able to just say to ourselves, it's okay, sweetheart. It's okay, wherever you are. I know you're feeling really afraid right now. It's okay. And you just go into your body and you just see what it feels like, where you're feeling it. You know, for me, when I feel it like in my gut. If it's really strong, it's so tight, I feel like I could throw up. Sometimes it's not so tight, I feel it in my gut, but it still feels really uncomfortable. But that's what I'm feeling. And to myself, I can say, and it's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. And the thing about all emotions, difficult emotions and non-difficult emotions, is that they all pass. Everything passes. Everything changes. Everything is fluid. And the way it changes the most fluid is when we allow things to just go through us. So we don't make it good or bad. It just is. We don't have judgment on it for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing bad about it. It is what it is. And it's okay, sweetheart. And she gave 2 wonderful tools with meditation that I want to teach you today on this podcast that I'm really going to encourage you to use this week. And the 2 tools are called calm abiding and compassionate abiding. And I know I've talked about it in the past, but I want to talk about it again because this is the only type of meditation that we did this weekend. And of course, as I'm talking about Pema and I'm talking about Buddhism and this age-old philosophy, it has a lot to do with meditation. And I know I've discussed meditation with all of you in the past. And to just once again, to be able to define meditation for you, because there's so many different ways to do it. And a lot of people think that meditation means calming your mind down or having no thoughts. And that is exactly what meditation is not, because as soon as you start watching your mind, you start seeing that it's not calm. I mean, sometimes it is, but many, many times it's not. And many times you don't feel any better than when you started, which is okay. But the purpose of meditation is to notice when you're distracted and being able to come back. So you can be distracted from being where you are and noticing that your mind goes off to Mexico someplace. And then as soon as you notice that you're thinking, you just bring yourself back to the present moment and you feel yourself sitting again. That's meditation. Done. Period. Simple. So they gave a couple techniques, and believe me, there are many ways to do this. And the purpose of this podcast is not to teach you how to meditate, but maybe to encourage you to find your own practice. But I am going to teach you some very simple meditation tools that you can use when you're meditating. So the first one she calls calm abiding. And calm abiding is basically 3 steps. And the first one is that you first, it's kind of like you just go sit in your body. You just bring yourself back and you find yourself sitting. And as soon as you bring yourself into your body, then you open up to awareness. And he gave the example of just like putting your right hand up and closing your eyes and then just putting your mind on your hand. That's awareness. Like you're not seeing it, but you're feeling it. And awareness then is that when you're sitting and you become aware, you just become aware of what you're feeling, what you're hearing, what it feels like right now as you're just sitting there. You become aware of your senses. And the third step is basically just that it is uncontrived. That's the word that was used. In other words, you don't try to make it anyway. You just let it be what it is. You don't change your breathing. You don't try to change anything. You just sit with what is. So the 3 steps are, number 1, you relax in your body. You sit in your body. You bring yourself into your body. Number 2, you become aware. You can become aware by thinking about your hand first and just feeling it in your mind, or you can just become aware of what's going on around you. And the third step is that it's uncontrived. You don't try to make it anything. You're just sitting with what is. That's calm abiding. And you can do that as a meditation practice. You can do it for 5 minutes. You can do it for 10 minutes. In the class, I think we did it for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. It was a lovely, lovely practice, very different from the way I usually meditate. But you know what? That was my mind. I'm open to new things. Now, the other way, the other tool that he talked about with meditating was compassionate abiding, which is another thing you can do when you're just meditating. And you can do it in connection with calm abiding if you want. Compassionate abiding is basically 2 steps, and you can do this at any time in meditation or not in meditation. It's one of the tools that I even teach when you're having an urge. It's a step that you can take that when you see potato chips, I always use potato chips because that was my thing. You see potato chips and you can feel the urge inside of you. You feel it and you want to go eat them. If you were doing compassionate abiding, what you would do is first acknowledge that you have the urge. And then what you would do is you would breathe in that discomfort, that urge. You would breathe it in. You would take it in. You would feel your discomfort. It doesn't have to be an urge. It could just be sadness or it could be anger. But whatever it is, instead of trying to run away from it, the way that you actually sit with it is by breathing in your own discomfort, holding a space for your own discomfort. And then once you breathe it in and you take that breath, then you breathe out your own relief. So you breathe in your discomfort, you breathe in your pain, you breathe in your anger, you breathe in the urge, and you breathe out relief. And you can do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 3 to 5 breaths of doing this. It's like taking a pause when you're feeling uncomfortable. And you breathe it in and you breathe it out. And you breathe it in and you breathe it out. You breathe in the discomfort and you breathe out the relief or the relaxation, whatever it is that you're wanting. And you're going to find that that will start changing the feeling inside of you sometimes. And the third step is just to move on, right? So you can do it within a meditation or you can do it when you're having a strong emotion. So instead of running away from the emotion, what Pema is teaching is that you just breathe it in. You don't run away from it. You breathe it in. You feel the emotion. And then you let go of the emotion. And you do it 3 to 5 times. And what it does is it gives you a little bit of distance just by letting it in and letting it out. And sometimes that can be enough to walk away and move on. Walk away if it's an urge, if it's cake, if it's potato chips. Sometimes it's enough to be able to just, you allowed it to go through and now you can just move on. Sometimes what might happen is you allow it to go through and it's still there and you still follow through with the urge and you eat the potato chips. But either way, you say to yourself, it's okay because for sure you learned something by taking a pause. And that's compassionate abiding. So I want you to think of these 3 tools as you're moving into meditation, as you're moving in to making friends with yourself, as you're moving in to giving yourself your own warmth. I'm telling you, it can make such a difference. And I'm so inspired. I really hope that this helps you. And I'll be talking more about it because I am so filled up with all of this information right now. And I'm learning even better. You think it's easy for me to sit with my difficult emotions? It's not. It's not any easier for me than it is for you, which is, of course, another thing to remember is that we are all alike. It's difficult for all of us. And that's what makes it sometimes easier, is to realize that we're all the same. We all have these problems. We all have trouble sitting with difficult emotions. But for me, the reason I'm doing this podcast right now is because I want to be a benefit to you. So I'm sharing this with you. And I hope that maybe you'll share what you've learned today with someone else that you love, or you'll share my podcast with someone else. Because that's all we really want to do as human beings, is first, we want to create warmth for ourselves, create a space for ourselves. And then once we do it for ourselves, we must do it for others. We want to do it for others. It's so easy to give warmth to others when we've given it to ourselves first. So listen, for this week, with this life-changing information that I keep passing on, you know what I'm going to say, but it's never meant more than it means right now. Please, 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 no matter what else you do this week, please be very, very kind to yourself, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast with my wife, Dr. Deborah. I've enjoyed working with her and living with her. That's right, we work and live together for 40 years, more than 40 years. It's amazing how time flies. And it's been like a little tree growing in the yard, and now it's a big tree, our love. So I would like to invite you to correspond with Dr. Deborah. Go to iTunes, drdebbutler.com/iTunes, and you can review the show, and you can even give some helpful suggestions on what you would like to talk about in the future to accomplish your mindfulness and your journey into mindfulness. Thank you.